stream. How are you guys doing today? This is the Dino Sports Show. I am your host, Nick Beasley, aka Dino. As you guys can see on the tag there, it says Dino Show 4. That is the Twitch stream channel. The Dino Sports Show is what we're doing here. It's a podcast. It was audio. I said, you know what? Let's up it a little bit. Let's get a live video feed show, and that's what we're doing. Let's get right into this. We have a lot to get to. First of all, Elimination Chamber was Saturday. Also, the start of college baseball. And the MLB is postponing their spring training, which very much, it pains me, it hurts me, but it's okay. Be alright with that. Because we have a lot to get into. We have pro wrestling to get into. We have some baseball stuff to get into. Also, the All-Star game was All-Star basketball game was this past weekend. We'll get into that as well. But here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the show. As I said before, I am Nick Beasley. This is the Dino Sports Show. How are we doing? So, first things first, the WWE Elimination Chamber. A couple things happened. First of all, The Miz lost to Rey Mysterio on the kickoff show. Miz says he's going to have a special guest come in for WrestleMania. I'm assuming, a lot of people are assuming it's going to be Cody Rhodes, who just left AEW, or maybe Logan Paul, since he did say this guy's a mega celebrity, a big celebrity, social media celebrity, and we all know Logan Paul is one of those people. But, so Rey Mysterio did beat The Miz. A little bit of help from Dominic, even though Dominic was sent from the outside, or what was sent from ringside, even though technically he didn't do anything wrong. Okay, he didn't do anything wrong, but it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up for sure. But yeah, so he didn't do anything wrong. But The Miz kind of tricked everybody into thinking he did, so that's what happened. But the question is, did Goldberg get Goldberged by Roman Reigns? He didn't, but he almost did. It took about 6 minutes and 15 seconds for Roman Reigns to beat Goldberg. Goldberg did deliver 2 spears to him, and it looked like he was going to deliver the jackhammer, and actually Goldberg Reigns. By the way, the meaning Goldberg, to beat Goldberg is Goldberg comes in, beats you in like 5 minutes, and the match is over. This took 6 minutes and 15 seconds for Reigns to finish Goldberg with a guillotine chokehold that made Goldberg pass out. So Roman Reigns retained the Universal Championship. Of course, Rey Mysterio beating The Miz on the kickoff show. The second match of the night was the Women's Elimination Chamber match between Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Doudrop, Rhea Ripley, Nikki Ash, and Alexa Bliss. Nikki and Morgan were the first 2 women to start the match. And it was a fairly routine one-on-one match up until the timer rang, and all of a sudden Doudrop came in and started destroying everything that moved. Quickly following, Rhea Ripley entered the match and went directly after Nikki Ash. Didn't take long at all for Nikki to be begging to get out of the chamber. Bliss would be the next one to enter. She would have a good showing. She was actually in the final 2. Bianca Belair was the last one to enter, and she ended up winning after hitting the KOD on Ripley and the KOD on Bliss. Bianca Belair did win the Women's Chamber, which means she will face Becky Lynch at WrestleMania for the WWE Raw Women's Championship. Personally, I would have liked to have seen Liv Morgan win, but I mean, they weren't going to let anybody other than Bianca or Liv win. So I did think there for a minute that they were actually going to pull the trigger, let Alexa Bliss win the match, but they didn't. And they made the right decision by doing that. That they didn't need to do that at all. So good on them. The next match was Ronda Rousey and Naomi versus Charlotte Flair and Sonya Deville. Ronda Rousey had to have her hand tied behind her back. Now, I don't know if WWE meant to do this. I don't know if they realized that hand was not behind her back. It was on the side of her. It was on her side. It was still tied. She couldn't really use it. But they made her look even stronger because she's the one that ended up making Deville tap out to the armbar with one arm. This came because in an interview, Ronda Rousey said she could beat Sonya Deville with one arm tied behind her back, and she proved it at the Elimination Chamber. She in fact beat Sonya Deville with one arm tied behind her back. I'm not mad about it at all. I think maybe they should have booked her to do it to Charlotte, but I understand why they didn't do it that way. It makes sense. They're gonna fight at Mania anyway, so you might as well just go ahead. Let Charlotte kind of, wait. And in fact, Charlotte walked away in this process, making her look like a coward and making Ronda look even better than before. Drew McIntyre versus Madcap Moss. Not much happened in this match. It was a very quick pace. Madcap had a spot, though, that I think was a botch. I believe to be a botch. Drew McIntyre was like hitting, I don't know what the move's called. Okay. McIntyre hit a reverse Alabama slam that sent Moss crashing onto the top of his head. It was a very serious situation, and very many people thought, oh crap, Madcap was actually injured for real, and I thought so as well. He did not suffer any injury, broken neck or anything like that. But during the match, Baron Corbin, Happy Corbin, tried to get involved a few times. Well, you ever heard the saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight? Drew McIntyre brought a sword to a wrestling match. Yeah, his sword Angela, which is named after his mother, is what the storyline says. He got that and tried to attack Corbin with it, nearly took his head off. And then he hit a Claymore, his finisher, on Madcap Moss with the sword in his hand, stood there pointing the sword at Baron Corbin and pinning Madcap for the victory. Clearly, this is not over between Madcap Moss and Drew McIntyre, or between Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre. Very entertaining storyline that I'm kind of wishing, though, would end. Next up was the Raw Women's Championship match between Becky Lynch versus Lita. Becky Lynch and Lita had a nice fight. Lynch finally did hit the Lynch was actually able to work out of some things, and she was able to beat Lita, but it looked for a while like Lita was gonna win this match. Like everybody thought, like Lita hit every single move possible. She hit the twist of fate. She hit the Lita assault, the somersault off the top rope. I mean, it looked like she was gonna win the match, but that didn't happen. They keep the belt on Becky, thus protecting the WrestleMania main event, or the WrestleMania Championship match between Becky and Bianca, and making sure it stays Becky versus Bianca. Next up, and to many surprise, of course, was the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match between the Usos and the Viking Raiders. This was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. As the Viking Raiders are walking out to the ring, the Usos, acting like the scared little cowards that they are, attacked the Viking Raiders, and it never even happened. The Usos attacked the Viking Raiders, and the match never happened. Now, I don't know if this was a timing thing by WWE of saying, hey, you know what? We're going to go ahead and just attack them and go to time. Or if this was the plan all along to make the Usos look like they were scared to fight the Viking Raiders. Which, if you know what the Viking Raiders look like, I don't blame the Usos one bit, because them boys are big. But still cowardly from the Usos to attack the Viking Raiders before the match even started and not even having the match. WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match. Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins versus Riddle versus Austin Theory versus AJ Styles. Theory and Rollins opened the match with Theory going right at Rollins from the opening bell. Rollins managed to come back with a series of super kicks. Rollins would continue the attack until he powerbombed Theory into the side of Lashley's pod. Now, when this happened, Lashley was removed from the match. The reason it happened is because, to be fair, it is because Bobby Lashley has to go have shoulder surgery. I wish him nothing but the best, and this was the easiest way I think that they felt like to get him out of the match without him having to come into the match and be eliminated. It protected him from having to be pinned. They also removed him, and he was in concussion protocols. Now, here's what's interesting. Riddle then entered Riddle entered when they were tending to Lashley. After Riddle entered, AJ Styles would enter. And then the pod for Lashley would be scheduled to open. Right? They got to make up like, yeah, it wasn't our plan to get him out of the match, obviously. So, the pod opens. Well, Brock Lesnar decides he wants in the match, and he breaks the freaking door to his pod. Rips through, just destroys everybody. Lesnar finished off Styles with an F5, leaving Theory as the only other man in the chamber. By the way, he eliminated Riddle. He hit Rollins and Riddle and Styles, leaving Theory all by himself. Theory begging Brock, please don't, please don't, please don't. Well, Brock did. Brock attacked him and F5'd him off the top of the pod. Now, the update after the event, it was reported that Lashley would be out for 4 months to have shoulder surgery, explaining his booking inside the chamber. And it made sense. I mean, you don't want to have him enter the match, period. But especially, you don't want to have him having to enter the match with a busted up shoulder. And you don't want to have him enter the match, period. But you don't want to have him enter the match and get pinned. But it also will add to the storyline. But Brock Lesnar is the WWE Champion, and Brock Lesnar will go on to main event WrestleMania against the biggest, I'm going to go with Butt Nut, okay? I mean, he is the biggest idiot. He's one of the best wrestlers, but he might be the biggest heel. He might be the biggest character, but I'm okay with him not being there. And that is Roman Reigns. So Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, champion versus champion. Looks like the stipulation will be winner take all. Now, The Miz did say in the WWE Elimination Chamber pay-per-view that he has someone in mind to help him even the odds in his rivalry with Rey and Dominic Mysterio. That's going to be interesting to see. Is it Cody Rhodes? Because he did say see you Monday. And there's been speculation that Cody Rhodes shows up on Monday Night Raw. That has been a speculation for a while. I'd love to see it. I don't think it's going to happen. But man, could you imagine the pop? Could you imagine the pop from the crowd? If that happens. If that happens, could you imagine the pop from the crowd, man? Oh, that would be awesome. That would be absolutely incredible if that happened. Now let's get into some baseball. Anybody else like baseball? I like baseball. I love baseball. And this weekend opened up the college baseball season. And oh boy, was it a good one, especially for the SEC. Especially for the SEC because, oh boy. I mean, their team struggled a bit. Mississippi State almost lost, or Mississippi State lost twice. I believe Alabama swept. But man, it was a good weekend for baseball, wasn't it? I'm gonna tell you guys the scores, okay, the final scores from this weekend in baseball. Just in the SEC. Have them all, but I'm just gonna do the SEC. Let's go to Friday. Okay. Now, Friday's schedule kicked off with Auburn versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma beating Auburn 3-0. We're going to talk about that. Okay. Georgia beat Albany 4-2. Long Beach State beat Mississippi State 3-0. Tennessee beat Georgia Southern 9-0. South Carolina beat UNC Greensboro 9-7. Kentucky beat Jacksonville State 10-8. Illinois State beat Arkansas 3-2. Alabama beat Xavier 5-4. Ole Miss beat Charleston Southern 9-3. Vanderbilt beat Oklahoma State 3-0. Missouri beat Nichols